We're rolling. We're on the
rolling. Air. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Mike Reviews It All. I have Garth here with me to my left. This is the fourth episode of the Mike Reviews It All longcast, but we're going to do something a little different in this one. We're going to break it off into something called Conspiracy Theater, and this is going to be the first episode of Conspiracy Theater. We're going to start out just exposing the truth. This is not going to be a whole lot about theories. This is exposing whoever it is, the government or whatever it is, by their own writings, their own documents, their own evidence. There's so many things out there that aren't even being argued that have been done. Everybody thinks of a conspiracy as a conspiracy theory, but a conspiracy is just people conspiring to do something. And there's been a lot of interesting things, one of which we're going to talk about is the Northwood Project, which is pretty interesting. I'm sure, I know Garth's looked into that some.
Yes. I have, for the last at least 20 years, I've been just steeped in conspiracy theories, what's true, what's not, and the cool thing about Operation Northwoods is that this was a military operation signed off by virtually everybody except John F. Kennedy, who bluntly said, no, you can't do it. And they released it back in 1998. So we've only had this knowledge about Operation Northwoods for the last almost 20 years. So what it says is that the government, except for John F. Kennedy, was willing to go and carry this out because in their minds, the ends justify the means. And Operation Northwoods, if you just took and switched the names around, you could have the 9/11 conspiracy. And so this is indicative of it's just one example of just how deep the rabbit hole goes that we're looking at. And we need to, everybody needs to look it up on Wikipedia or whatever and check it out and understand that this has been going on for a long time. There's always the hidden hand. And if you've ever seen those old photos where the guys have their hand inside their shirt,
yeah,
that's basically it's a secret sign saying that they're part of the hidden hand.
Oh, there's all kinds of secret words and different things out there.
And there's the Masons, of course, are a secret society that are pretty much in full view of everybody. And the Skull and Bones, then you go to like Bilderbergers and stuff like that. But there's also scientific conspiracies, which is kind of what I've looked into a lot. In other words, which is a lot of stuff not very well known. But we're just going to talk about Northwoods first, and then we should also talk about Operation Paperclip.
You can get these documents, actually, you don't even have to go to Wikipedia. What I have here is straight from the NSA website. You can't see on here, it now says unclassified. Actually, I'll put it up here a little closer, and you can see, but I'm going to put a link to this down below. It used to say top secret special handling. That's crossed out now because, like you said, in 1998 it was declassified. So this is from March 9th, 1962. Says it's to the Joint Chiefs of Staff on the Cuba Project. Says the Chief of Operations Cuba Project has requested that he be furnished the views of the Joint Chiefs of Staff on this matter by March 13th, 1962. It's requested by Chief of Operations Cuba Project. The Joint Chiefs of Staff are to indicate brief but precise description of pretexts which they consider would provide justification for U.S. military intervention into Cuba. How many justifications is our media putting out there right now for different wars, the first Gulf War, for 9/11. I mean, we don't know what happened, but they're a powerful machine. Yeah.
This is normal operating procedure, okay? And there's a lot of speculation that the sinking of the Lusitania was to get us into World War One.
Yeah.
The fact that Pearl Harbor was attacked and we knew it was coming, and there's a letter from Churchill to Roosevelt that basically still has not been declassified. So, Pearl Harbor is what got everybody going in the right direction to enter the World War II. Okay, so this is probably, Northwoods is just standard operating procedure, and it's some pretty scary stuff. But this is, you have to put yourself in the place of these people at the time. Cuba was so close to the United States, you could have a nuclear strike, from Cuba in no time. Okay, now so, see, in the minds of the Russians, because we had missiles in Turkey, they should have missiles in Cuba. And of course, JFK said, no, you've got to get it out of there.
Well, he told them we're going to blow the country off the face of the planet, pretty much.
Yeah, and at this period of time, between the Russian nuclear missile stock and America's, the planet would be gone. It would literally, you could destroy the Earth, and so you're looking at the world from a totally different viewpoint when you're looking at it that way. Okay, and so this sort of stuff was just penny ante, just to justify getting in there, getting rid of the dagger at the throat of America, which was missiles in Cuba.
Well, and there definitely was, everyone wasn't on board with this, everyone didn't know. I'm going to read recommendations on here. It says, this paper not to be forwarded to commanders of unified or specified commands. This paper not to be forwarded to U.S. officers assigned to NATO activities. They didn't want NATO to know about this. This paper not to be forwarded to the chairman, U.S. delegation, United Nations Military Staff Committee. So they went to great lengths to make sure that NATO and United Nations didn't get their hands on these documents, and that they were all on board and they were just as in the dark as the public.
Yeah. So there's a pyramid, and the people at the top operate totally differently from the people lower down in the pyramid. Okay, and then right around the bottom of the pyramid is where we're at. Okay, so our visibility on this stuff is limited. But like with Operation Northwoods and Operation Paperclip, Operation COINTELPRO, stuff like that, you get sort of you're looking through the keyhole of what's actually going on. Okay, and so at any one time, there's stuff going on right now. Okay, that would probably boggle your mind.
There was a ton of stuff going on both sides.
Yeah, and but you should be able, from your computer, to be able to go out there, okay, and get an idea of what's going on. You should be able to settle in your mind the fact that you are in a world full of secret societies, the hidden hand, the principalities and powers in high places, like the Bible said, because we battle not against flesh and blood. We're not just, there's actual stuff going on that people don't realize. There's the government's into all sorts of stuff, like remote viewing. If you listen to Art Bell or Coast to Coast or anything like that, you've heard a lot about remote viewing.
I've heard some. I've heard that, I don't know if it was a rumor, but if it was a really spread rumor that people could easily hack into your Xbox Connect and see your living room.
Yeah.
I mean, might be wrong, but I think that's pretty well documented.
If they've got the technology, do you think they're not going to use it? In other words, and I'm a fan of the Rockford Files. Okay, and there was an episode of the
that
Rockford.
was an awesome show.
Oh yeah, there was an episode where Rockford and this other detective uncover a house just full of computers. Okay, and eventually they figure out it's the government, right? And then the government has to shut it down because it's been exposed, right? And so, but at the end of the show, they give you basically a warning to the public that all this technology is already going on. The laws are in place that allow the government to do this sort of stuff, to gather all the information that they need. And so, Facebook, YouTube, Tumblr, everything out there, the government is just out there just sweeping up information, everything else, and they're going to be all over this video as well.
Is Google an extension of the U.S. government?
I think
I believe there's a huge possibility that Google was directly ran by the U.S. government.
And it could very well be, and even if people knew that, there's probably like, well, I figured, So you get, everybody has a sort of comfort level, okay, and where you know enough to where you know there's stuff going on, but you'd rather not know. You don't. Ignorance is bliss, right?
Well, it's like the frog in the boiling water. He doesn't notice as the temperature's risen 1 degree at a time. And I think this generation now, as millennial generations, people stop bashing them. These guys didn't create everything that's going on right now, but they've grown up in a world where privacy is just not the same to them. They don't understand that you don't need to share your entire life on Facebook, and that things, nothing against people that post things to their family on Facebook. I post things that maybe I shouldn't. I'm not worried about anybody coming after me.
That's what it's for. It's for people to create a virtual community, because you don't have real community. You probably don't know your neighbors. Everybody within a one or two block radius of your house. There could be a house full of computers there, and you wouldn't even know. And there's when it comes to community, this is one of my pet peeves. I don't know if I've mentioned it before, but the building codes and the zoning regulations are specifically designed to make sure that community, that Mayberry and people getting together and solving problems on a local level does not happen. Okay, it's almost against the law. You cannot build the kind of infrastructure with affordable housing, or trying to build a self-sufficient community like, say, the Amish have, without running afoul of all sorts of regulations that disallow it. And this is what I ran up to when I started getting into affordable housing. I realized that the answer to virtually every problem, no matter whether it's aliens attacking us, whether it's the government turning on, whether it's an invasion, the solution is always the same. You have to get together on a local level to protect yourself. You have to create a community. You have to have people you can trust, and that's what's missing. You can't trust everybody. You don't know who's a Mason, who's an Islamic insurgent.
I think you need to know your neighbors, and definitely I just want to stop for just a second and give a shout out to food banks and people that are doing things for charity. A lot of people forget about the hungry and the homeless during the summer because everybody donates during the winter. Please go out and donate to your local food banks and volunteer at your local food banks. That and homelessness, those causes are dear to my heart. So.
Yeah, and America is incredibly charitable. Okay, people
Absolutely.
get just millions of dollars. And there's conspiracies even in some of the charities that they've exposed over the years and stuff like that, where people are taking money, and whatnot. And anywhere there's going to be big money, there's probably going to be some shenanigans. You can about guarantee it. So the best way to give is to give on a local level. Charity begins at home, is the old saying.
Yeah, know the charity that you give to. I work with the Marysville Food Bank, Marysville, Washington Food Bank. They're a great organization. It's close to where I work. We donate to them. We donate food and money. I know the people that run it personally. They're great people, and it's a great great charity to donate your money and food to, and you know that it's going to go straight to those people, because you can go there and you can see them waiting in line just in a small community of Marysville on, I think it's like a Tuesday or Wednesday I was there, and 400 families waiting in line for food on one day.
And that's, it's a bad thing. It's that our society has this sort of a problem, because the homeless come in pretty much a couple of varieties, right? Three basically. You have the drug addicted, alcohol addicted, and they simply can't control themselves. There's the mentally impaired, that the system has just let them slip through the cracks, and they've got nobody to help them out. And then there's just economically deprived, somebody who just had a catastrophic illness or something like that. And so these people end up becoming homeless, okay? And where do they go? And the system is designed so that you have these homeless to kind of like scare everybody else back into the system. The government does not want to solve the homeless problem. That's the only reason it's not solved, is because the government doesn't want to solve it. They may give lip service to the fact that, oh yes, we've made strides and whatnot, but still the numbers grow. Still the problem has been existing, for many, many years,
They might help people, but it's always from there. You have to make sure they're getting something out of it, definitely. Whether it be just out and out money, publicity, or whatever it is. The true charity is usually done by individuals like us and people watching, and from the churches. Whether you're religious or you're an atheist or whatever, the churches have really carried the citizens of this country through a lot of things, both through hospitals, food banks, and just a lot of great charitable work.
Yeah, and the whole homeless thing, that's a whole other show. That's a whole, the rabbit hole goes so deep on that. That's a whole other show. So getting back to the conspiracy, now we talked about Operation Paperclip. That was basically where after World War II, there was a rush by Russia, Britain, and us to basically gather up all the German scientists, okay, and put them to work for us. Because if we don't get them, then the other side gets them.
Oh, we got a ton of German scientists, especially after World War II, during
Werner
World War
von
II.
Braun is one of the most famous, but but a lot of these guys were dyed-in-the-wool Nazis.
Oh
okay.
yeah. Oh, definitely.
And they were given new names, new identities, and put in the American public and went right to work. And a lot of the technology that we have, we don't even know, but it goes back to the brain trust of these Nazis that they brought over. And now I collect 8-track tapes, right?
Yeah.
Well, that audio tape technology, okay, traces back to Germany, and the secrets that they brought back, and that's a whole lot of other stuff too. Probably stuff having to do with UFOs as well, because the Nazis were well into all this sort of stuff.
I didn't know about the audio recording, but do you think we've been visited by aliens, or do you think it's explainable? Do you think it's more likely that it was technology that the government hadn't let out yet?
Okay, this is touching on a really
Are we gonna have to save some of this for another show?
No. This is okay. Because I studied the physics. Okay, I went down the rabbit hole as far as the physics would take me. What I found out, okay, is that faster than light travel, okay, theoretically reverses the aging process, okay, and once you have this technology, you're able to travel, to other star systems simply by going when you go faster than light, you get younger, and you go slower than light, you get older, and you can just keep doing that, older, younger, till you get to where you're going, okay, at the same age that you started out with. Theoretically, this is what the physics are pointing at. I believe the government has the unified field theory, okay, which is the unification of the four known forces of gravity, electromagnetism, the strong nuclear force, and the weak nuclear force. This is the big kahuna. If you're talking the secrets of the universe, the technical term is unified field theory. Okay, and I believe that I came across it, and I tried to tell everybody, and I went to these colleges and stuff like that.
Oh, that's the last place you want to go. Colleges don't want to hear truth.
Oh no, I got basically what I got told is this is very interesting stuff, but good luck trying to prove it.
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm out of the paradigm. See, there's.
I'm surprised you got that nice of an answer.
They were actually really nice. The University of Washington and University of Puget Sound, I became good friends. Okay, and basically I realized that I was on the right track because I'm not the only one that went down this track. There was like Buckminster Fuller was one guy. And then there's another guy out there named Howard Bloom who has a rotating universe theory or toroid universe theory. The toroid universe theory is essentially what we're looking at, and other vortex theories. It has to do with the Michelson-Morley experiment may have been tampered with. The reason you don't hear very much about Tesla when you're in school, there's a reason for that. Okay.
Well, Nikola Tesla was completely vilified.
Oh yeah, but he's basically, they don't talk about him in school. There's a
They're
lot
starting
of
to a little more now. My children have heard a little bit about him, but definitely not when I was in school.
Yeah, when I was in school, I didn't hear anything about Tesla. There was nothing there. And here's where we get alternating current from.
Yeah.
So anyway, the physics of how our reality works pretty much dictates how the secret societies are going to, align themselves. What their agenda is going to be. And raw gut survival is what faster than light travel is talking about. Okay, this is why I believe they can't let people know about aliens and they can't let people know about flying saucers, because if they do, and people realize that faster than light travel is possible, and people start looking at it, eventually somebody like me is going to say, hey, look at the physics. It makes you younger. Okay, and so they can't have thousands of people bum rushing Area 51. That's just,
you don't think it's more plausible that a lot of these UFO sightings were really stealth fighters and stealth bombers, and the government let that UFO conspiracy dwell out there to hide the project? It was kind of a convenient cover.
No, I think that if you look at Roswell, if you look at the stories around Roswell, you'll see that the government was adamant, okay, that none of this came out. They didn't want. And first of all, they'd actually, if you remember the War of the Worlds thing with Orson Welles.
Yeah.
Okay.
I listened to War of the Worlds.
People panicked. Okay, when he put that fake news program out about the War of the Worlds, people just went bananas, right? So that alone tells the government, yeah, we probably shouldn't put that out there. Okay. We don't want this whole structure of society breaking down around us, right? And so they had to keep a lid on it then. And but our presidents, ever since probably Truman, or maybe FDR and beyond, pretty much understood that these aliens were there. Okay, and they had things in the World War II called Foo Fighters. Okay.
You think Trump will expose this stuff? I see him as that loose cannon that. I bet you that's the first thing he asked for when he got in the White House. He's like, show me the UFO files.
I think that presidents are not elected, they're selected. I believe that, now if you look at the...
You think Donald Trump was selected? You
I think
Hillary Clinton was
selected? The
selected?
guy's a CEO. If you've got a nation run by CEOs, what's the ideal president? It's a CEO, right? And so essentially you have to have political theater. You have to have a lightning rod where all the fire is directed at, and then behind that you have the hidden hand. Okay, now supposedly this is what operates with the Vatican as well. The Pope is the figurehead, but the real power is, with the Jesuits, and stuff like that. If you look into the history of the Catholic Church, you see all kinds of stuff that they don't want noised around. Okay?
Did you see here recently? Google cocaine delivered to the Vatican in condoms. They recently found a bunch of cocaine that was being delivered to the Vatican, and they were hiding it in condoms. They're finding a lot more things here recently, now that they're realizing it's not the innocent organization that was put out to be.
There's an old saying: the higher the monkey climbs the tree, the more you see his ugly side. So when you have any kind of a religious organization or a political organization or anything where there's a lot of power concentrated, you're going to see a lot of stuff that's out of line, and whatnot. And the Vatican is essentially Rome. Rome never fell. Okay, it just changed the way it did things. And instead of the Greek gods, now we have the Christian saints and stuff like that. And it's power, it's staying in power. And the Vatican has been controlling Europe and probably using the old royal families and everything else. And then you got the Rothschilds on the other side, and the Freemasons and whatnot. And so but it centers around knowledge. The more knowledge is power. Okay, and the battle for better technology and a better handle of the truth. Now, understand that all sides have dirt on the other side. They can't release their dirt without their dirt being exposed. This is mutually assured dirt.
That's why WikiLeaks was such a huge thing. I mean, and they just dump all these documents out there. And now a lot of people are saying, how do you know this? A lot of those documents weren't doctored. Well, I'll tell you, I know a lot of them weren't doctored because these people were in such shock and awe when some of this thing was released, some of these conversations at the DNC, that they didn't come out and deny them. So if they didn't come out and deny them, then it's kind of hard to, let's go back and think about this. Now we should probably deny these horrible things. Now that this is over.
Denying it is basically engaging with it. They're going to ignore it until they absolutely don't, until they can, right? And this is why, who's that guy that's that they're after, that's been releasing all this secrets and stuff, the head of WikiLeaks and whatnot?
Julian Assange.
Yeah, they're after him with a stick.
He just they just proved that whole the whole rape charge or whatever, that was bogus. Now he's still being held up in the Ecuador embassy on other charges, though, because the United States wants to extradite him. England wants him. I'm sure there's a lot of other countries that want him. So
he's got a lot of knowledge. I mean, when you basically this is the it's almost like a Hollywood movie. It's where somebody gets that information, and now what do they do with it? The media's controlled, so how are you going to put it out there?
Yeah, and people are a little more open to starting to look at some of these things right now. It's like when you look at declassified documents, I'm going to read some of these things that they said. This is incidents to establish a credible attack from Northwoods, not in chronological order. Start rumors, any clandestine radio. Do we see that today in political banter? Of course we do. Land friendly Cubans in uniform over the fence to stage attack on base. So they said, let's take some Cubans that are with us, they're against their government, we'll put them in uniform and let's make some false flag attacks. Capture Cuban-friendly saboteurs inside the base. Start riots near the base main gate with friendly Cubans. How much accusation has there been out there on both sides that there was riots created mostly in the Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump rallies, and there were so many accusations that George Soros and other people were involved. They even found ads where they were recruiting people. You can look this up. They were recruiting people to go out there and punch people in the face.
So essentially controlling the narrative, the media is controlled. Everything that you're going to hear, and they've got videos where every single newscaster is saying virtually the same cliche line.
Yeah. And they're all reading. You want to download something specific on your phone that you can check this. you almost see Associated Press at the top of the stories, almost always, and then they throw in a little bit of their own opinion. Like I did, download the Associated Press app. That's mostly where I get my news alerts from, is straight from the Associated Press. And this is supposedly the most unbiased before all these networks get their chance to dice it up with their own opinions. But they're all taken from the same source. And then the New York Times copies it. The Huffington Post just a lot of times just copies their story almost one word for word without even looking at what the Associated Press has written.
Yeah, the newscasters, the talking heads that you see, they're just rattling off, what they're told. Okay, and it's sad. We don't have a press like we used to, where they would go and they would dig and expose stuff and whatnot. Probably, when we had Watergate, yeah, okay, the press was really after him, and whatnot, and that was literally, you couldn't keep a lid on that once it blew up and whatnot. Of course, and then Nixon was basically had to resign, and then of course immediately Gerald Ford, who I shook hands with Gerald Ford one time, when he was coming into town. At any rate, he pardoned him, and so we'll just sweep that aside here. No, nothing to see here.
I wonder how many people walked up to him and shook hands and said, why'd you pardon Nixon? How many people had the balls to do that?
They didn't get on camera. Or if it did, it's gone.
Yeah.
So essentially, the answer, when everything around you is in such hidden chaos and you don't know exactly, you don't have solid footing, what you need, okay, is to have solid footing on a local level, because that's what the government doesn't want. It goes out of its way to make sure that the only community you have is the corporation. Okay, everybody works together like a community, happy, joy, getting money and whatnot. But the corporation does not have any responsibility for the welfare of the community. Although that money is strip mined out of the community and sent someplace else. Very little is reinvested, okay, which is de facto slavery. Okay?
Another reason to support small businesses. About 3 times as much money from a small business goes back into your community as a local chain. Every time I get the chance to shop at a small business, I try to eat at locally owned restaurants that are, by my store. Most places you can find them. You can find them easier here, like, Marysville, Lake Stevens, Everett, our area. When I visited Utah, the areas we were at, because we were building stores for a company I was working with, about 10 different cities, actually almost strictly chain stores. And that's definitely not what I expected in Utah, where you have, everybody thinks it's this close-knit society, mostly Mormon, which of course there are a lot of Mormons there.
It's a religion, it's the pyramid, it's the top of the building sways the furthest out of line. Okay, so they got their own issues, okay, but one of the things I like about the Mormons is the support of the family. Okay, you cannot deny that they love supporting families.
It's a great structure to raise your children in. I know
it's good in that respect. Okay, and so there is there's pros and cons. Okay, with every religion, there's things you like, things you don't like, and whatnot. But my mom used to call it chicken in the bone. You eat the chicken, you throw away the bone, right? There's good and there's bad. Okay, but so. The government doesn't want you to have a community, so or affordable housing, okay? And the reason is because if you watch the movie It's a Wonderful Life, that kind of Frank Capra knew about this sort of stuff, and he put it into his movies. Like Meet John Doe has to do with knowing your neighbor, okay? With Gary Cooper, Barbara Stanwyck. I highly recommend that movie. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington talks about government corruption, and whatnot, with Jimmy Stewart there and whatnot. And It's a Wonderful Life deals with affordable housing. This is what George Bailey does in the movie, is he creates affordable housing, okay, so people can own their own homes and not pay, whatever Mr. Potter decides is the rent for those slums that they live in.
How much control do they have over all of us literally being paycheck to paycheck. There's some people out there right now praying that they were in paycheck to paycheck. They're in so much debt. They're taking out payday loans to pay electricity bills that are going to get shut off tomorrow. There's credit cards they haven't paid in 6 months to a year. I mean, think about what people around you talk about, what they're open with of being paycheck to paycheck, and then think...
It's not a way to live, believe me.
No. And it's... I think it's much worse than most people's pride will let them let on to. That.
You know, and the funny thing is, okay, you know, most people that are going to be, looking at this video, they have a certain amount of overhead and whatnot, but they've been, got some firm footing. I mean, you got enough to have a computer and watch YouTube, so you got a fairly firm footing. Okay, but the higher you go, the more you're invested into the system and the less that you want that system to change, because it would endanger your security. And it's all about security. And there's another 1, 2, 3 thing here. Okay, their very first concern is environment. If you don't have an environment that supports life, everything else is moot. Okay, and you're done. Then you have to have security. You got to be able to hold on to the gains that you made. You be able to secure your environment, to have, not be fighting wars constantly and stuff like that. And then the number 3 is education, because if you don't have education, you can't pass on the knowledge so that you can maintain your environment and maintain your security. So education is the third leg of the triad: environment, security, education. Everything that you deal with will fall into that.
So we're destroying our environment. We're fighting wars on every continent except for maybe Antarctica.
And our education system
our education system is a cult.
Oh yeah,
it is completely amazing, especially colleges.
Kids, at such an early age to all sorts of crappy stuff.
It's insane. Did you happen to see the thing here locally, Evergreen State in Olympia, Day Without a White Person?
Yeah, Martin Luther King must be just slapping himself, in his grave, going, what in the world are we talking about here? How far have we come? Now, understand that groups like, Black Lives Matter is funded by George Soros, okay, because he makes a profit off of chaos, okay? Understand that all the Muslim refugees coming into our country, Canada, Europe and whatnot, and then now London with all the new attacks they've had in London, that's artificial chaos. And chaos makes, the opposite of chaos is order. That's the government. The government wants a lot of artificial chaos put in there so that everybody makes sure that what order there is, stays in power.
Yeah,
okay?
And
it's a way of holding on power. If everything's really nice, if you've got like really nice order, and we're living in the 1950s, and
or the 60s when the government was doing things like this. If you think your government isn't doing these things, let's go back to this document a little bit more. Blow up ammunition inside the base to start fires. Burn aircrafts on airbase. Lob mortar shells from outside of the base into base. Capture assault teams approaching from the sea of vicinity of Guantanamo City. And what are we doing with Guantanamo now?
Yeah,
we've kind of claimed it, right? Capture militia groups which storm bases, sabotage ships in harbor, large fires, sink ship near harbor entrance, conduct funerals for mock victims. Look this up. Number 11, page 8 of this unclassified document. I think that's one of the most interesting things in here. Sink ship near harbor entrance, conduct funerals for mock victims. If you can read that and watch the news and still say that you can believe everything that you see, you're lying to yourself.
Yeah. Now, if you can't talk about conspiracy stuff without talking a little bit about Alex Jones and InfoWars, right? And Jesse Ventura and all that. Okay, you see, so conspiracy stuff is actually a marketing tool. Okay.
I don't think there's anybody coming in. I closed the window.
Okay. Just check it.
Yeah, we're.
Okay, so
yeah, we're not gonna say where we are.
Okay, so they've talked a lot about like the FEMA coffins, okay, and the fact that the government's bought like 1 billion rounds of ammunition, and stuff like that. That they're expecting something. They're expecting some chaos and some martial law. Okay.
What else? Buying all this ammunition, cut you off for just a second. What did that do to everyone else? That served two purposes. Not only did they stockpile all that ammunition, it severely increased the price of ammunition for everyone else.
Yeah, and so, probably having a reloader would be a good idea. I'm not a Second Amendment freak or anything like that, but I'm a big believer in being self-sufficient. Okay.
Hunt to eat.
Yes. Well,
I'm a big hunting fan. It drives me nuts when somebody says that they're a meat eater. If you're a vegan, fine. Then you're standing in your principle, and whether I agree with you or disagree with you, at least you're standing in your principle, and I can't fault you for that. But if you're a meat eater and you advocate that the slaughter and the deprivation of thousands of animals through these assembly lines, and trust me, a lot of these things are being seasoned before they're even dead. I've talked to hundreds of people in my lifetime, because I used to live by IBP, Tyson factory, that told me they chopped cows' heads off while they were still alive. Their eyes were rolling back in their heads. And you're going to go after someone that's hunting a deer and killing it humanely and cutting it up. You don't get more organic than hunting for your own food.
yeah. Essentially, you have to. There's another 1, 2, 3 thing. There is a thing called the 1, 2, 3 principle, and I always refer to it, but there's a lot more to it. We can go into depth later. But you have to eat food, which is solid, drink water, which is liquid, and breathe air in order to survive. Okay, our water's polluted. Okay, our food's polluted, and of course there's stuff in the air, which, now according to Alex Jones and forth, but they're
buying air in China.
Chemtrails. There's chemtrails.
Yeah. You don't even have to go to Alex Jones, though. They're selling cans of air in China. You can buy, I believe it's 3 hours of clean oxygen for about $20.
Yeah, and the pollution's so bad, that they can sell air. That's insane. Okay. Okay, and the oceans used to be so clear that like Columbus coming across the ocean, you could see clear to the bottom. You could see what was down there.
What do you think about the BP oil spill? They said, this is going to destroy the oceans forever, and then all of a sudden, the ocean just miraculously healed itself, and now we can fish. About a year later, not even a year later, and everything's kind of fine.
Well, they could be lying too. Fukushima has polluted a lot of the water. There's a lot of toxic stuff, and it's coming out. We're on the West Coast, so we're getting all kinds of stuff coming at us. We don't even know. We're downwind, so to speak.
Well, yeah, and there's people taking iodine pills. Like you said, Alex Jones, he's selling straight iodine pills, and all these people I don't think iodine pills are going to pull up for you. But
just it's an incredibly long list of conspiracy theories. It's overwhelming. There's so much. There's subliminal advertising. There's the Heart Project. There's this is one of my favorites. There's A440 versus A432 hertz. Okay, the Germans figured out that it creates chaos if you pitch tune all your music and.
So what does that mean? A440.
Okay, that's a pitch. That's a pitch. Okay.
Okay.
And if you do a test with water, okay, and you hit the water with A440 and A432 separately, right? You'll see that A440 creates a jumbled, chaotic pattern, whereas A432 creates a nice pattern, or a distinctive snowflake pattern of some sort. Look it up on YouTube. A440 versus A432. Okay. Every single thing you could possibly think of, okay, that affects your life has somehow, got a conspiracy involved in it. Okay, and so I'm gonna. There's stuff that you probably never heard of, which I want to mention here. First thing is that Kennedy actually tried to warn us 7 days before he was assassinated. He gave a big long speech, and this is and you can look it up on YouTube or Google it and whatnot. But here's the most telling aspect of that speech. He says, "There's a plot in this country to enslave every man, woman, and child. Before I leave this high and noble office, I intend to expose this plot." And that's J.F. Kennedy, 7 days before his assassination. Okay, so you're basically to be enslaved, to not have a choice. You're born and live and die within a de facto slave system. And the elitists are in de facto royalty. You can't touch them, you can't dislodge them, you can't get them out of power because they have money, influence, and they know where the bodies are buried. And this is why we can't get rid of Hillary, right? Because she knows where the bodies are buried. Okay, the conspiracies surrounding around Hillary and Bill Clinton.
How many crimes have got to be connected to her before
it's mind-boggling.
it shows up in court?
It's just mind-boggling what she's gotten away with. Okay, a Republican would have been, roasting over an open fire.
I don't like to get too partisan, I think, but Bernie Sanders probably would have beaten Donald Trump. I'm pretty sure that he would have taken him pretty easily. I think he wins by 10-15% on his.
They had to make sure Hillary got in because Hillary was so scary, essentially. Because we're talking Clinton's all over again. Okay. Yeah, she's a woman. Yeah, we'd like to have a woman president for fair and balanced and whatnot. Okay, but it's Hillary, right? And it's Bill and whatnot. And we don't want to go down that road again. So essentially, Hillary made sure that Trump got in, okay? And if you remember, Trump, the moment he got in the race, he dominated. Everything he said, everything he did, and the guy already had, a very high media profile. Everybody, and he's a household name, right? So he started out well ahead of the pack. He was selected. He was placed there, okay? And that's fine. Okay, deep down in your heart, you want to believe that the two-party system is actually in competition, but it's not. It's one party disguised as two, working both sides of the political street. Okay.
I think it depends on what you're talking about. There's definitely incentive for both sides to win elections, and I don't think every election is predetermined and. Honestly, I don't think.
Sure?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure of anything. I'm open-minded, but I also like to look at things and say, what's the most likely?
Oh, the most likely is that they don't leave anything to chance. This is why you have the Electoral College in the first place. If the popular vote, for some reason, goes the wrong direction, the Electoral College can always say, no, we're not going to go that way. Okay, and so your popular vote is not really a voice. You can't. It does nothing. Okay, except just yay us. Yay for our side. Okay, the very first third party in America. Okay, you look it up. It was the anti-Masonic Party. They were way back, hundreds of years ago. People already realized, hey, wait a minute. These Masonic guys, they pretty much are controlling everything. I don't think we want to live under their rule, right?
Yeah.
And so there was a scandal came out. There was a Mason. What was his name? Anyway, he basically was going to spill the beans, right? He was in the Masons. He left. He says, "Uh-oh, we're in trouble. I'm telling everybody, right?" Well, he got kidnapped right in front of everybody on the street, yelling assassins and murder and everything else, and they took him and he disappeared, and people are going, well, I don't want that to happen to me. Maybe I better join this anti-Masonic party, right? And so it was a viable threat, and it took a while for the system to deal with that problem, okay? But that pretty much told the sisters that we can't really have third parties that aren't sanctioned here. So you're not going to get a viable third party. Okay, Ross Perot. Okay, he was probably the last person to really make to make the government a little bit worried, right?
How is Bill? That's got to be Bill Clinton's buddy. He's got to send him a present every year because there's no way Bill Clinton wins that election if not for Ross Perot taking 19% of the vote.
Well.
Mostly from the Republican Party.
If you remember, why did Ross Perot suddenly leave the race? Why did he suddenly leave
I
the race?
don't remember, but I know he left and then he came back in.
He said there was a credible threat to his family was made. If
That
he
was
did not
public.
leave
That
the
was
race.
aired on national news, CBS,
Yes.
NBC.
Yeah, okay, just check it out. And then he thought about it, and then he got back into the race. But when you leave the race, okay, because you're saying the powers that be are telling me I can't run, right? And then you jump back in and say, well, I don't want to be a coward, so I'm going to try anyway, right? And then but you're branded a coward, and you're no longer, a viable, candidate. But people loved Ross Perot. The average guy who's probably going to vote for Ross Perot, okay, and he made a lot of sense. He had diagrams and everything else, and
It was an oil tycoon, though. I mean,
plus he was a man of action.
Oil tycoon.
He actually helped in rescuing hostages and stuff like that. He spent his money on cool stuff, right? For the country and whatnot, and he was absolutely a good candidate. I would have voted for him,
Yeah.
Not just because he's a third-party candidate,
This is
but
what,
because I like what he
92?
had to say.
Yeah, I think it was
1992, yeah.
92. Yeah, I was only 14, so I don't have as good a memory as you probably.
Yeah. So there's a book called Vote Scam by James Collier, and you should look at that. This basically details two brothers, the Collier brothers, down in Florida, who were running for office simply so they could write a book about running for office, what their experiences were. And what they did is they caught the other side printing up ballots. They were going, my God, the corruption is so huge, right? And so suddenly their publisher backed out because it was such a hot potato. The local news wouldn't have anything to do with them. They basically had, they pulled back the, pulled the cover off of or opened the lid on a can of worms that the government went to great lengths. If you read that book, it went to great lengths to cover up and get rid of them.
But do we know for sure that these people were getting away from the Collier brothers because they knew they were on to something, or because they were scared?
They were scared.
Or because they had done things that they'd been discredited or proven were false?
They were scared, because they realized that if this was true and if this is what our system was, then we're in deep trouble. And nobody wants to go down that road and incur the wrath of the IRS and everybody that can make your life miserable higher up above you, right? And so publisher backed out. It was a very big publisher too, and they decided we can't touch it, right? So there's another book I highly suggest, The Underground History of American Education by John Taylor Gatto. That tells you how our education system has been subverted from the beginning by corporations and stuff. Do you have anything on education that you want to make? Because I got a couple things,
Yeah. Oh, it's very interesting. The professors right now that are coming out with what is considered alternative findings. I was listening to a couple people lately. One of them, I can't remember her name, Dr. Brogan. I can't think of her first name right now, but she's a psychologist actually, and she used to be she still considers herself a feminist, but she was a huge liberal feminist, very rah-rah system, $200,000 in student loan debt. She kind of figured she had to be. Then she started actually looking at the science. And she said when she talked to her colleagues, nobody was looking at science. Everyone was going on what has been said by tradition for years and years and years, and no one was actually researching these things. She said in 12 years in psychology, she had 1 hour of health education. Most of her time was spent being courted by a big drug pharma. They would take them out when they were struggling, starving students. They would take them out to 5-star restaurants and their friends. She said, bring your friends, bring your family. If you want to look at her book, it's called A Mind of Your Own. It's by Dr. Brogan. Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't think of her first name right now, but if you just type in Dr. Brogan, it should be really high up in the Google searches right now, because she was just on Joe Rogan about a week ago, and she totally is against. She's against all drugs. She says that none of them work. Abilify has caused people to become gambling addicts. Antipsychotics make you 2.5 to 5 times more likely to be suicidal or to create homicide. Yeah. Chris Cornell, they just found him, and they're like, oh, there's all these publications that say they found these drugs in his system. Antidepressants. Most of them were antidepressants. I can't think of the biggest one. It's highly prescribed, and I can't think of the name of it right now. But you can look it up, and a lot of it were antidepressants, and another drug that was in there was something to help him come off of illegal drugs like heroin, because obviously the guy, he came up at a time where everybody was doing cocaine.
A lot of people are turning to heroin because they become addicted to opiates through regular medicine, and we're looking at a huge heroin crisis in the Seattle area. There's problems with drug needles being left everywhere. There's just problems with robbery. We've got people, thieves, bike thieves living in RVs, and they travel around. And anything that's laying out there on your front yard, is going to disappear, and it's going right into the drug needle. So it's a huge problem, and the system does not address it. Okay, it doesn't. Basically, it needs that chaos. It needs those problems. It needs to justify itself. So it's not going away. So the only thing to do is you got to protect yourself on a local level. Okay, and this is why I always say you got to. If you can make an actual physical community, try doing it. Try getting together a bunch of people, okay, and creating a self-sufficient co-op of some sort, a gated community where you're bartering services. See, the government can't tax your bartered services, right? So, and they don't like anything that's out of control. Now, this brings me back to a story. Basically, it was in Philadelphia. There was a guy named John Africa. He got tired of dealing with the system, and he decided we're gonna, these 2 square blocks where we live, we're gonna take it over, and we're gonna solve our own food. We'll grow our own food. We'll create our own healthcare. We won't do nothing. The city just leave us alone, right? They dropped a bomb on him. The city of Philadelphia dropped a bomb on this guy, right?
Go over this again. Let's rename these sources so we can.
Okay,
this.
John Africa. Okay, the group he started was called The Move, right? And he took over a couple blocks of Philadelphia, and then when the city decided, well, we can't move these people out, and it's becoming problematic. We got to deal with it real quickly right now. They dropped a bomb. They killed women and children. Okay. Got rid of that community real quick. And
what time was this?
This is in the 70s, I believe. So anything that looks like community, okay,
I have to do some research on that.
Okay,
I'm not familiar.
Comes under deep scrutiny because they want you individual. They want you divided and conquered. They want you not knowing your neighbors. They want you totally dependent on that corporation. They want you believing what the news says. Okay. Because some people wake up. One of my favorite movies is They Live with Rowdy Roddy Piper.
That was a great movie.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's almost a documentary, really. And you put on the glasses, suddenly you can see, what's going on. And I highly recommend it. And essentially, now if you look at Ruby Ridge, okay. There was the guy who his wife and kid were shot, okay, by the ATF, and whatnot. Essentially, they wanted to make him an informant on Aryan Nations, and he wouldn't do it, right? And so he was becoming problematic. And
which was the David Koresh? I mixed those up. Which was the David Koresh?
David Koresh was the Branch Davidians of
That's right,
Texas.
Branch Davidian. Okay.
Okay, and they burned them all.
Yeah.
They went in with tanks. They could have arrested Koresh anytime they wanted to when he went downtown.
Well, they sent an informant in there, and they found out that this guy was an informant. And this is documented. You can watch this on It was something big. It wasn't PBS. It might have been Discovery that I watched a documentary on. But they admit they sent an informant in there. He was talking to him. They found out he was an informant. They let him go freely.
Yeah.
And a few hours later, here comes the hailstorm.
Yeah. Oh, and then who is it? Who was the head attorney general? Janet Reno.
Yes.
Okay, Janet Reno, of course, comes and does a mea culpa. Well, we're sorry. We didn't mean to kill all those women and children, right and left, and burn them with fire and whatnot. It was, it's my fault, mea culpa, right? Oh, also, Janet Reno was attorney general of in Florida, okay, and basically she dealt with James Collier, that boat scam I was just talking about.
What do you mean dealt with?
She threw the case out of court.
Okay.
Okay, and guess who else dealt with the Collier brothers? There was Anthony Scalia, who was a federal court judge at the time, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg. All these people got rewarded by the system for taking the Collier brothers and throwing their case out of
but
court.
Scalia, a big Second Amendment advocate.
Yeah. So here we go. You've got Waco, you got Ruby Ridge, and
those are two of the biggest scandals ever, I believe, and people forget about those. And they're not even scandals. It's completely open. All the files are open. And who is in jail? They literally went in there and just mowed these people down, lit them on fire. They killed women and children.
This is to let you know that you're not supposed to have a community. You're not, because what was happening was people were upset about Ruby Ridge. They were upset about Waco. They were going, I'm a little bit afraid of my government right now, and I think I'm going to get with my buddies, my good old boys, right? We're going to have a militia, right? They had to kill the militia movement. Now, how in the world can you kill the militia movement? Oklahoma bombing. The federal government gets hurt. Oh, now it's fair and balanced. Now, in everybody's mind, a little balance is
What are you saying there?
I'm saying that McVeigh was basically the fall guy, the good soldier who went in there. Okay.
So you're saying the government sent Timothy McVeigh in there and said,
I said there's a lot of evidence. I'm not the only one saying this. Okay.
I haven't looked into this too much. I know he was very remorseful and said that he was ready to die when he found out how many children were in the bottom of that building. And
he could have been a crazy guy. He could have been.
Watching that video of the reaction,
the guy was a decorated soldier. He was a decorated
I believe he did not know that those children in the daycare were down there, and he didn't see the people in there even as people at that point. I think it was an us versus them.
There was a lot of high government officials who were conspicuously missing during that bombing.
Timothy McVeigh and Nichols, what was his first name? The other guy with him. He had an accomplice.
Yeah, essentially, that's another whole can of worms. But essentially, what that did, okay, is it just diffused the whole militia movement in America. That was what it was for. I mean, it's what I would have done.
Yeah,
that's if I was the government. I said, well, in everybody's mind, there's an imbalance, and so we gotta fix that.
But that's definitely a conspiracy theory, not a proven conspiracy.
Yeah, it's a conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
Look at the evidence, make up your own mind. Okay, myself, I looked at it. I go, oh my God, if it's what I would do, if I was in the government, I'm going. Yeah. We got to stop these militias. We can't have communities forming with guns and everything else, and whatnot. We're not ready for that. So let's a false flag. There you go, false flag attack. And so, and if you look at Northwoods, you understand that the government is very high-handed and willing to do that sort of thing. Okay, this is the government we live in, and it's and our government keeps it under wraps for the most part. I mean, there's stuff that would curl your hair if you knew. But all these other countries around the world, they're ruled by elitists. They have knowledge that the regular people don't.
Definitely.
There's no place you could run. Okay.
And we can't know everything, right? There's things that not everyone can know.
Yeah.
For security reasons.
But it starts with the unified field theory. You understand the unified field theory and the 1, 2, 3 principle, and the next thing you know, Freemasonry pops up, and then they're all over the 1, 2, 3 principle, and George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, Paul Revere, most of the founding fathers were Freemasons. They've been, this country's been controlled from the beginning.
And that's very documented.
Yeah. Now that's it. That's easy. So essentially, the two greatest powers in the world are probably the Vatican and the Freemasons. They're the ones that are pulling the strings. Okay, and that's actually
What
kind of
about the Saudi oil sheiks?
That's the third world.
You know how much money that we call them third world, but I was watching a documentary the other day. I can't remember the documentary, but I was listening to some of it on Joe Rogan podcast too, and he was talking about how we're so infatuated with our billionaires. Oh, Bill Gates has $80 billion. Warren Buffett. These oil sheiks, they estimate that the oil in Saudi Arabia that it's not the Ayatollah who's in charge of that area, it's just the sheik, has access to as much as $1 trillion. We're talking about trillionaires.
Yeah, well, I think that if you look
$80 billion, not even close to the richest.
if you look at the Vatican and the Rothschilds, there's a lot more money there.
Oh, there's a ton of money with the Rothschilds.
Yeah, the Vatican, they've got money they don't even know about. Anyway, but I'm glad you mentioned, okay, the third world, the Islamic world and whatnot, okay. What I think is happening, okay, with the refugees and stuff like that, yeah, they're importing chaos and whatnot, and that helps all the local governments and people stay in power, with all the chaos and whatnot. But what they're doing is, now, you ask anybody, you ask your neighbors, what do you think about Islamic religion right about now? And they're probably going to tell you that it's scary, it's wrong, it's evil, it needs to go, okay? It is the new bad guy, okay?
And did you know in Iran under the old Ayatollah, I believe in the 70s, you can look up pictures of females in the 70s in Iran, and they were not wearing the full head guard, the scarves. They were actually dressed much more like American women.
Oh, yeah.
Some of them were even showing cleavage and legging, and new Ayatollah came in there and said, we can't have this, and took control over it again. So it was a hijacking of the religion, not...
Yeah, the religion's been hijacked.
Not the teachings itself.
There was a lot of moderate Muslims. Iran was a nice place to go. Iran was our friend.
Yeah.
And then everything changed when radicalized Islam came in and whatnot. But I think it's by design. I think that essentially the one world government that's coming, wants to get rid of religion as a whole. You have to, first of all, you have to demonize one religion, and you have to get rid of it, and that sets precedent to get rid of all the rest. Okay, and so once Islam, okay, people have been fed up, and then Islam is attacked and whatnot, and I think there's actually biblical predictions and revelations about what happens, okay, in Saudi Arabia.
There's a lot of things in the Quran and the Bible that cross over.
I'm just saying that there's
also,
that essentially Islam is going to be the fall guy. It's going, it's bad. It's always been. It's got a lot of stuff wrong with it. Every religion has stuff wrong with it that it's been doing in the past and whatnot. But Islam, if you go, and I highly recommend going to Dr. Bill Warner. His Facebook page and YouTube videos are very informative on what Islam's all about.
What is he? Was he a professor? Or?
He's a physicist, and he.
I've heard the name.
He basically creates videos that explains how the religion works. It's got the Quran, the Hadith, and the Sunnah. And essentially, it's a very complicated religion. You could pretty much justify anything. Okay?
Well, doesn't every religion have to be complicated? Because you have to have layers upon layers of...
Christianity and Judaism, they got the Ten Commandments. That's pretty straightforward, and the old laws of Moses and stuff like that, which, most Jewish people, they don't stone adulterers anymore and stuff like that. Okay, but it's
or 18-year-old children that just don't behave.
Yeah. Okay, you talk back to if you hit your parent, they had reasons why they did everything. If you hit your parents are your upline to God. hitting them is like hitting God, right? You know, and then boom, you die, right? They're like Klingons, right?
Well,
you know, you have no honor, bang.
They're
you're done.
creating a structure, just like they would talk about how evil money was because they wanted all the money.
And if you think about it, if you've got you know God dwelling in the temple in your midst, okay, the rules are going to be pretty strict, okay, and so they were. So I'm a Christian, of course. You know, I'm biased when it comes to the Bible and religion and stuff like that. You know, plus I see a lot of physics in there too. The first 10 verses of Genesis actually match up with the unified field theory, as well as some parts of Revelation. So I'm very much into that. So, but the reason I was, you know, happy you mentioned Islam and whatnot is because of the movie Mystery Men. Okay, which I've told you a little bit about that.
Yeah, I started watching a little bit of it. I haven't finished it.
Yeah,
I know
okay.
you told me about a month ago. I still have.
You got to watch the whole movie. You see, Amadeus Mozart, okay, was a Freemason. And when he composed the Magic Flute Opera, he put the secret knock of the Freemasons into the Magic Flute Opera. And so all the Freemasons in the audience, when they heard it, they all get it, but it went over everybody else's head. Now, the movie Mystery Men came out in 1999, has Ben Stiller, William H. Macy, Janine Garofalo, Pee Wee Herman, Jeffrey Rush, Greg Kinnear, Wes Studi. Really, you know, some really great actors, right? You know, and they're basically, the movie's based on ancillary characters in a very, very obscure comic book, right? You know, how does that get to be a movie? Well, it did. And when I watched the movie, it just instantly leaped out to me. There's patterns here. And I'm all about patterns. You've got to watch the movie, and you've got to, you know...
so you were saying they had secrets in there, you believe?
Yeah, there's secret messages in the movie meant for Masonic minds only. Okay. And
so
it's like
so it was
Mozart.
made by a Freemason. You think Ben Stiller's a Freemason?
I don't know who wrote it. Well, I know who basically who the script writer is. The director, Kinka Usher, a guy named Burden was the guy who wrote the comic, and there's the other guy who's this writer. I don't know. Okay, I don't know who was to blame, who knew what, when, okay, but there's three choices with this movie. Either it was, yes, it was purposely done, no, I'm a whack job. I'm a conspiracy theorist who's gone off the deep end, and it's just a campy movie, right, you know. It's a great movie, I love the movie. Anybody who watches it, you know, it's great, you know. Or it's a case of synchronicity that's just off the chart, okay. The very first time the words or the phrase "weapons of mass destruction" was used in this movie. Okay, just a couple years before 9/11, and what this movie is describing.
I have to watch that now.
What this movie is describing is what's going to happen to America. Now, Greg Kinnear plays Captain Amazing. Captain Amazing, he has no power, but he has super technology. Okay.
I did watch a little bit of it. I thought it was very entertaining how he had all the sponsors. He's got he looks like a NASCAR driver.
Corporations. He's covered the corporation.
Pepsi, Chevron.
Yeah, he's got a publicist and everything else, and he's a billionaire. And his name is his alter ego is Lance Hunt, which means weapons search. Okay. All right. Now the first people he defeats are the Red Eyes. The Red Eyes represent communism. Okay, he defeats them. They're easy, right? You know.
Yeah.
Okay, and now he has a problem. He's so amazing that there's nobody left to fight, and he can't. He needs artificial chaos, right? Okay, this is exactly what America's got to be fighting one war after another. Otherwise, the corporations are going. We're going to remove that Pepsi endorsement, right?
Yeah.
You know, and so he lets go of an old enemy named Casanova Frankenstein. Now, Casanova Frankenstein represents the Vatican. Religion uses heaven and hell. Casanova was the ultimate object of desire, a male figure of desire in the literary world, and then Frankenstein was the ultimate object of fear. So you got fear and desire. Okay, heaven and hell, right? Okay, so he represents the Vatican. His gangs represent the 7 deadly sins. The furriers represent lust, the suits represent gluttony. The frat boys represent pride. The rappers represent anger. Actually, the Not So Goody Mob is what they changed the name to, but in the credits you'll see that the Not So Goody Mob was actually called the Rappers. Okay, but they changed it.
Rappers like a rap artist.
Like rap, and
Okay, rap
and
music.
they're defeated by fighting each other. Okay, and in the end, so there's a thing called a blame thrower.
Okay, don't spoil the whole movie for me.
Okay, so essentially, now the Mystery Men are composed, first of all, of the Blue Raja, who represents the third world, the Shoveler, who represents the working class, Mr. Furious, who represents angry youth, okay, and eventually they get Janine Garofalo, the bowler's daughter, who represents feminism, and feminism. Of course, she's got her dad's skull embedded in this bowling ball, right? And she's always arguing with it, right? Stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so she represents feminism.
I'm gonna bring this back up when I watch the movie.
Yeah. Okay.
These things that you say, and so I can try to see what you're seeing there. So
Okay.
if you're at home, maybe listen to this while you're watching the Mystery Men again, and
There's a website
see if you agree.
can go to. Maybe you can put a link to it on here, but it's I put all the symbology onto one website, so it's easy to look at.
Just give me a reminder on the link. Text
Yeah.
me before I post it. Yeah.
www.freewebs.com/movie mystery.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll make sure there's a link down there to it, because that's
Okay.
a lot to remember.
Yes, or you could just Google alleged allegories of the Mystery Men movie.
Oh, so this is a widespread belief that there was a lot of things hidden in this movie.
No, pretty much I'm the only one.
Okay.
Okay, but I've been on talk shows and stuff, talked about it, and people, when you start to see the amount of symbology in there and what it's leading up to, then it becomes very clear. Now, the key thing that happens in the Mystery Men movie is that Captain Amazing is captured by Casanova Frankenstein, and he's basically in an attempt to rescue America. Okay, the Blue Raja pulls a switch, right, and kills him accidentally, right? They don't mean to kill him, but they do, right? You know, he's the one that actually pulls the switch. The Blue Raja, it's very important. The Blue Raja, Hank Azaria, by the way, is the one who pulls the switch. Okay, and so that means that America, this movie is saying America is going to basically be destroyed by the third world.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and accidentally, on purpose. Okay. Okay, now, one other thing I should point out is that Jeffrey Rush, he plays Casanova Frankenstein, and he has two henchmen. Okay, Casanova has two henchmen, Tony C and Tony P, the Disco Boys. Tony C represents Catholicism, and Tony P represents Protestants. Okay, and disco represents religion. Okay, and it gets better. Okay, it really does. All the characters, everybody represents something, and so I haven't even uncovered it all.
So it's kind of like a spoof on reality, you think, like the Scary Movie for horror movies.
It's a stealth movie, is what it is. A stealth movie. I love the movie. It's great. It's an allegorical masterpiece. It really is. And if it wasn't designed that way, it is the most off the chart case of synchronicity and I have ever seen. Okay, if these guys were like totally like, wow, we didn't know. Right, you know.
I can think of a lot of words for Ben Stiller, but Mastermind's never one that's came to mind.
No, it's
Nothing against his acting. I enjoy his movies, but
yeah,
it doesn't strike me as a mastermind genius.
Okay. So essentially, though, it's certain movies have a lot of hidden messages. And of course, now you know that Stanley Kubrick put messages into like The Shining and stuff like that, having to do with NASA and stuff like that. You can find that on YouTube as well. Supposedly, there's a big conspiracy around NASA, that we didn't really go to the moon the first time, that it was actually staged on a sound stage and whatnot, and that there's a lot of people compile evidence.
Well, there's a lot of people that believe that, and yeah I'd like to go into that deeper in another show.
And then there's the flat Earth theory. Oh, the flat Earth theory, boy, that's a rabbit hole. You go down that one.
Hey, you're going to get us cut off. One of our sponsors is the Round Earth Society. We need that Round Earth Society money. That whole $5 a month they send me, I have to save up to buy this tripod and this microphone. Don't ruin our funding. The Earth is round. Don't listen to him.
Okay. All right.
Get your Round Earth shirt in the link below.
Round. Okay. All right. All right. So there's so many conspiracies. It's hard to sort them out, and it's hard to know what to do. But the best thing to do when you're surrounded by Native Americans, like you know, and I can't say Indians, right? Native Americans just shooting flaming arrows at you, right? You circle the wagons. You circle the wagons, and you get a community. You try and solve problems on a local level. That's the basic thing you can do, because there is so much out there. It's mind-boggling. Nobody wants to go down the rabbit hole as far as I have, or even probably as far as you have. Okay.
Well, maybe Alex Jones and a few other people, but
yeah.
Like I said, I'm open-minded to a lot of things, but I also, I consider coincidence a lot, and I just have to see a lot of evidence and have to look at things and say what's more likely. It takes a lot to get me to sound belief, and like these kinds of documents, like I'm going to read a few more here. Remember the Maine. That's going to sound familiar to people because it was fake. Remember the Maine incident could be arranged in several forms. This is on page 8 also of unclassified documents. This is the exact wording, we could blow up a U.S. ship in Guantanamo Bay and blame Cuba. We could blow up a drone, unmanned vessel. Yes, there were drones in 1962 and we had them. We could blow up an unmanned drone vessel anywhere in the Cuban waters. We could arrange to cause such incident in the vicinity of Havana or Santiago as a spectacular result of Cuba attack from the air or sea or both. The presence of Cuban planes or ships merely investigating the intent of the vessel could be fairly compelling evidence that the ship was taken under attack. The nearness to Havana or Santiago would add credibility. There's layers to these things, especially to those people that might have heard the blast or have seen the fire. So these guys put themselves in the shoes of the conspiracy theorists. Make no doubt about it. It's like to catch a thief, think like a thief. Well, to catch someone that's onto you, think about this from every side. And these guys are very intelligent masterminds, and they're not, they will use pretty much any means necessary to keep people in the dark.
This is business as usual.
Yeah.
This is just business as usual, okay, is what, and they don't mind releasing it. They don't care if we know, okay? Otherwise, if they cared if we knew, it wouldn't be out there.
Well, this was a long time. It was 26 years ago. But yeah, definitely. I think under George W. Bush, he had the ability to release the Kennedy files, and he decided to lock them for 25 more years. If you're watching this now, Google it. I believe it's in October that Donald Trump will have the ability to release the Kennedy files. So watch what's going on around that time. I'm not advocating for Republican, Democrat, or whatever, but Trump might just be enough of a wild card to do something like that.
Basically get together and write your congressman and send a lot of letters and say, release the information about Kennedy, right? And release the information about UFOs.
This has been how long? Was it 1963, I think Kennedy was killed, right?
Yeah, November 1963.
My wife's grandfather was with him, actually, in a picture dedicating the dam at Whiskey Tan Dam, I believe about a week before he was assassinated.
Whoa.
Yeah, we have the photo in our house.
She probably brushed up against the assassins,
Well, she wasn't there, her grandfather was, but we have the picture in our house.
Yeah, that's cool. I knew the guy who was a state trooper. I was a security guard, and he was a state trooper in Texas guarding Governor Connolly in the hospital on that day.
Yeah.
And he said that essentially all the information changed. Everything they've been hearing, suddenly the Warren Report reversed all this sort of stuff and whatnot. There's a lot to it. I mean, there's a lot to it. And what they did with the limousine and everything else, was supposedly sent back so the windshield was removed and replaced
Oh, okay. Oh,
and
yeah.
whatnot
Yeah.
because there was bullet holes in it, right? They had to get
I've heard some of these things.
yeah, because the bullet holes would not line up with stuff. It was like they had a magic bullet theory.
Yeah.
That they were going to go with, and so everything had to pan out.
I think that's one of the only conspiracy theories that people have gotten to the point that I think there's more people that believe it was more likely that the government killed Kennedy than a lone assassin.
Yeah, it's
which maybe for that reason they'll finally release those files.
Yeah, eventually the truth will come out, and we'll go, oh, right, and everybody that was involved with it is dead. Oh, what are we gonna do? Okay, well, nothing you can do, right? And so essentially,
especially when all those people that are dead that had something to do with it.
So here's the homework list. Watch the movie It's a Wonderful Life, okay, so that you know that paying rent is a scam, okay? In between owning and not owning is rent. Rent is a scam. You pay rent when you go to a motel and you're going to stay for a few days. You don't pay perpetual rent your entire life living in an apartment and stuff like that. Or perpetual mortgages and stuff like that just to survive. Owning your own home, setting down roots in your community, okay, and creating a self-sufficient community is what everybody should be doing.
Save your 20%, right? That's important. Don't get hit with that prime mortgage interest for no reason.
Yeah, avoid it like the plague. It's an alligator. It's green. Oh. It'll eat you. Right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, I thought it was interesting that they passed something, prime mortgage rate used to only be paid for the first 20% of their loan. I'm sure you know that. And then there was something passed, it was like the Fair Mortgage and Home Loans Act. That's not the exact wording, but I know. And the funny thing, this was a bill to help everyone. And one of the funny things that was pushed into that bill was that now they could charge that prime mortgage on your home for the entire amount of the loan, not just for that 20%, but you're still paying an insurance that you might drop out of your mortgage when your bank has so much to gain by you defaulting. You've paid off almost your entire home.
So instead of getting caught between little gears, you are now caught between big gears of the system.
And you're paying the same amount. You're paying maybe $120, $200 a month to insure the last $20,000 of your loan on a $300,000 house. It's ridiculous.
It is. It really is. So watch the movie It's a Wonderful Life. Watch the movie Mystery Men. Get the book Underground History of American Education by John Taylor Gatto. The Vote Scam by the Collier Brothers. What was your book that you were talking about?
Mind of Your Own. I believe it is. Dr. Brogan. Like I said, just Google Dr. Brogan. Actually, that's also a great podcast on Joe Rogan's podcast from about a week ago.
Okay, and so if you really want to upset the apple cart politically, okay, don't get the politicians worked up about any sort of issues that they want to talk about. Get them to talk about the building codes and the zoning regulations. If you want to really zap the system, okay, that's what you do. You say, I would like to change the building codes and the zoning regulations to allow affordable housing, real affordable housing, downsized modular, affordable, and self-sufficient communities, just like the Amish got, only using technology and whatnot. I want to build stuff on the water too. 70% of the Earth's surface is covered by water. Why don't we live on the water? And then we have communities living there whose whole purpose is to clean up the oceans, right? Why not? And why don't we live in
we can definitely build islands. We've done it.
Yeah, and there's much that can be done. There's technology, and let's talk about free energy and the Tesla black box. The EV gray motor.
We should all be on 90. If we're not on 90% solar, which we won't be by the year 2020, it's the biggest fail in energy in modern society.
Yeah. Okay. So
in my opinion.
Okay. Now that we've spilled the beans on just about everything, okay, that I can think of, except the unified field theory. Okay. The basic thing about the unified field theory is just a couple key points. The universe is a rotating toy. The Big Bang, opposite of the Big Bang is the Big Crunch, okay? It's actually both at the same time. Contraction and expansion. Big Crunch, Big Bang. Big Crunch, Big Bang. Big Bang is an ongoing event. And that turning of the universe creates the flow of time, the forward motion of time. The contraction of the universe gives you the strong nuclear force that holds matter together. The expansion of the universe gives you the weak nuclear force that causes radiation. Gravity is actually the Bernoulli principle. It's a hydraulics phenomenon, and it's other vortex theory and whatnot. Now, electromagnetism arises from this thing called an 8 squared cube, okay? And it's a little too technical to go into, but essentially it works. It's a cube built up on the 1, 2, 3 principle. 1, 2, 3 this way, 1, 2, 3 that way, 1, 2, 3 in 3 dimensions. And so just connect the dots, okay? Make a cube built on 1, 2, 3, connect the dots, okay? And you will have the nucleus of atomic matter, okay? It's too complicated to go into, but trust me, it's there, and you get the 90-degree electromagnetic interface. You got proton, neutron, electron, 1, 2, 3. You have the 1, 2, 3 principle embedded in the periodic table with the n squared times 2, which predicts the number of electrons around in each successive shell. So basically, 1 times itself is 1 times 2 is 2. 2 electrons in the first shell. 2 times itself is 4 times 2 is 8. 8 in the next 2 shells. 3 times itself is 9. Times 2 is 18. 18 in the next 2 shells. So it's embedded in the periodic table. The Freemasons have it. So the 1, 2, 3 principle is essentially our whole government as well: executive, judicial, legislative, federal, state, and local, residential, commercial, industrial, upper, middle, lower class, east, west, third world, right? It's everywhere.
And they're trying to bring all of the middle class into the lower class now. You very rarely in the United States, at least, even hear the words lower class.
Yeah.
You hear lower middle class, and then just middle class, I guess, and then upper middle class.
Yeah,
you don't hear a whole lot of talk about the lower class.
If you have a community where everybody's interdependent and whatnot, there is no class structure. Okay, there's everybody. It's just like Mayberry, right?
Why does there need to be? Why do we have to control each other? What is our deal?
There's no need to. If you have a community and everybody's got a job, and whatnot. This is what the hippies were trying to do in the 60s and whatnot.
Hippie communes.
Burn it all down, man.
Do you know Steve Jobs was in a hippie commune?
It's a learning experience.
Steve Jobs used to walk into job interviews, he didn't shower, didn't wear deodorant. He'd walk in barefoot and put his feet up on their desk. He did this with Atari, and he got jobs. He got jobs with Atari and a lot of other different places.
He could pull that off.
And he learned most of if you read his biography, I know there was a few of them. I think this is just called Jobs. But he credits most of the charisma he learned from a guy he learned to despise. Eventually was the guy running this hippie commune, which basically had all these guys picking apples and doing all these different things for him. And then Steve Jobs is smart enough to realize, hey, this guy's not a hippie at all. He's a ultra capitalist, and he's just making all this money on our back. So he said, I can do that.
There you go. Okay, he got a down to earth lesson. Okay, and there's nothing wrong with capitalism per se or communism per se if it's balanced by each other. Okay, so what you need is a balance between capitalism. We can have everything we see today: the buildings, the skyscrapers, the incredibly expensive housing in the suburbs and whatnot. You can have all that if you want it. It's America. You should have what you want. But we should have the option to have a downsized, portable, affordable, modular home and to live in a self-sufficient community. You should have that option. In a free country, you should have that. But that option is taken away. Buckminster Fuller tried to build the Demaxian house, couldn't do it. Boeing tried to build affordable housing, I believe, in the 70s, and they got shut down. Fleetwood took the government to court on these building codes, and something became draconian in 1974.
Do you know, I just found this out the other day, who was involved in trying to build some of that housing was Bill Nye. Bill Nye, the science guy here in Seattle, an engineer.
Bill Nye got his thumb in the pie.
In Boeing in the 70s was trying to build affordable housing, and he was definitely pushing it. And for all those people out there lately that say he's not a scientist, maybe he's not a scientist per se, but there's a lot of
electrical engineers.
Well, he's an electrical engineer. He also has a Master of Science, and I find it very interesting. He's being attacked almost equally on both sides right now.
The conservatives don't like him because he's an atheist. He's very anti-religious and very, you know.
Well, it's obvious why the conservatives don't like him, though. Yeah, because of what you say. Yeah, and now
he's a global, global warming advocate. You know, I mean, he's almost a spokesman.
He's flip-flopped on his, on his ideas about gender and the genders that they're born into, gender fluidity, is that the right word, I think?
Male, female, in between is hermaphrodite, which is one half of each. Okay.
Unless you're in Canada and you have 53 surnames, and if you do not call them by Z, Zer, and everything else they make up, then you can go to jail.
Take off, eh? Dozer.
Oh, Justin Trudeau, man, that guy is a weird guy, but essentially, I'm getting off track.
The thing about homosexuality, I'll just real quick touch on that. It's overexposure to human pheromones during pregnancy. If a woman's around too many people when she's pregnant, the pheromones, which are designed by nature to go right to your brain, will flip-flop the neuron clustering in the hypothalamus, and you won't find out until the child hits puberty, and he's hardwired to, you've got a female brain and a male body, and vice versa. Okay, so sequestering pregnant women during the early parts of pregnancy and stuff like that. There needs to be studies on this, okay? Because
let's not have them work 10 hours a day in stressful situations while they're pregnant. I think that's a pretty good start.
Yeah, but there's
common sense.
There's another thing called maternal immunity and whatnot, where if there's a lot of boys in the family and whatnot, it can basically create the pheromones just within the family can cause problems.
So did you know there's documented evidence that women are more promiscuous are more likely to give birth to homosexuals, to have the gene that we now know to cause homosexuality?
There is no gene. Okay, there is no gene for homosexuality. There is a thing called epigenetics. In other words, certain genes that can predispose you to giving birth to a homosexual, but essentially.
Okay, so maybe my wording was incorrect.
Okay, so this is nothing against the LGBT community. They need the truth. Okay.
They're fighting for the truth as much as everyone. They don't want to call us
They should try to get the scientific truth about what causes homosexuality, but a lot of people are uncomfortable with showing off that truth. Okay, exposing it, and it's a touchy subject. Religion as well does not want to have, I would say the Vatican would frown upon having their dogma exposed as being fallible. Okay.
This Pope just came out and advocated for homosexual marriage. Did you see that? Pope Francis.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting, but that's, totally in line with the way, the Vatican is.
I think he had to. I think he kind of had to right now.
If Rome is like, if you can't beat him, you join.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's why it's totally in line. Okay, but essentially the human physiology works a certain way, and there has to be long-term studies on overexposure to pregnant women to pheromones. Okay, so when women after during World War II, when they were introduced in the workplace in so many droves, that basically just created a whole ramped up the homosexual birth rate essentially. And now there's so many. When you get so many,
is there evidence to prove that in numbers?
No, that's totally my conjecture. Okay, but when women go into the workplace in this mass droves, that's where the problem's going to start. Okay, and because it's pheromones. Pheromones are how human beings communicate biophysically. Okay, this is how we communicate signs of fertility and stuff like that, and women, there are things called pheromone parties where women will smell a certain t-shirt and they know just from the smell who they're compatible with.
Oh yeah, that's why colognes and perfume and everything are so important.
Yeah.
I mean, I guarantee you that there's been guys that have gotten laid because they were wearing the right cologne.
Remember High Karate, They give you instructions on karate to keep the women away. I love that commercial.
Or the Axe videos, deodorant.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's...
So, anyway, that's just my take on it. There needs to be studies, medical science has no consensus, other, than we don't know, and don't go there,
Which is kind of funny from the Department of Ideology that works completely on consensus.
But understand that homosexuality, the LGBT community being at odds with the conservative right Christian community creates chaos. Government is all in favor of creating chaos, divide and conquer. This is just another. The Christians and the LGBT community should be together. They should be demanding answers from the government. They should believe.
Of course they should be. We
Get
should
the
all be
truth.
together.
Get the
This is
truth.
what they want us to do, is separate ourselves into tribes. And we have that mentality. We want to be part of something. We want to be part of a tribe. You want to be part of the right or the left or the team. That's why I vote for the Seahawks. It's a tribal thing. I like watching it. I especially like watching it with other people in bars and with my friends. We bond over it.
Yes. So essentially, we because we don't have community, this is where we get divided and conquered, and this is why Christians and the gay community, cannot reach consensus, cannot get together and talk in a lot of cases and whatnot. And there's the left versus right. There would be less the hatred level in this country, left versus right, and black versus white, and rich versus poor, and young versus old, and
much of it fabricated. Much of it's
there's no need
fabricated
for it,
online. We don't hate each other
Yeah.
near as much as the media wants us to believe.
Yeah, and
Wants people to believe.
there's that flag really.
My opinion again.
The flag stands for unity. It really does. Okay, and people who are against the flag, against us, against our unity,
Yeah.
against our getting together, finding answers, solving problems, which is.
Well, I think you
what
can
we
be
should do.
I think you can be an anti-nationalist and be for unifying people and still be a good person. You just don't believe in the rah America or whatever. I'm certainly not an anti-nationalist
Okay, well,
by any means.
We have
but-
pointed out just how rotten the apple
Yeah.
is. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, but that's the government. That's not us. That's the government.
Yeah.
Okay, the powers that be. Okay, that have been in play for a long time. Okay, the ordinary guy, the ordinary person, the people, us. Okay, we're American. Okay,
So we're
and
talking about levels of nationalism.
well, there's
Government, society, the
essentially
people.
federal, state, local. Okay, and so there's always going to have to be some federal jurisdiction. You've got to have people at the top calling the shots on who do we declare war on Spain or not, right?
Well, we have complete chaos if you don't have some kind of
And
system.
you got to have a state level, like we're going to build this dam or not, and blah blah blah. And then we got to have the local level. You got to have city government saying, no, you cannot, bring that ship through downtown,
Yeah.
It's,
Some common sense.
some common
things,
sense
yeah.
stuff. There's got to be order, but there also has to be X amount of chaos for innovation, growth, and movement. Order for stability, strength, and longevity, and a balance in between. And if you look at the Freemasons, they have all working tools come in sets of 3 representing chaos, order, and balance. Okay, and so just take a good look. Learn what you can about Freemasonry and the 1, 2, 3 principle. Watch the movies that we said, and
All this stuff is old. That's what infatuates me so much, the divide and conquer. They just use it over and over and over again in complicated ways with other levels, but it's
Same old story, yeah.
completely divide and conquer over and over and over
all
again.
the time, all divided.
And then back to unite. They unite you so they can divide you against each other again.
Yeah, so
It's-
there needs
it's
to
amazing.
be a system that basically people are born into that gives you support for your family and support for your community and support for your future and security, so that you don't have these questions like, what am I going to do for the rest of my life? How am I going to support them? Where am I going to live? Am I going to be homeless? Blah blah blah. None of that should ever apply. You should be given, when you're 12 years old, you should be given your own housing unit. Okay.
When you're 12 years old.
When you're 12 years old. Okay.
By yourself.
Well, it's like when you get your own room as a kid, right? You get your own room because you're getting bigger now and whatnot. So
When you're 12, so
you get your own
self-sufficient, or this is a unit with your parents and
No, this is your own sort of a living unit that's yours, okay? And then you work for the community.
I highly disagree with our frontal lobe isn't developed until we're 25 years old.
Oh
These
no,
aren't
no, no,
adults.
no, no. you like when kids get older, like you watch Peter Pan, right? You know, and then Wendy has to leave the nursery because she's too old, right? You know, and whatnot. When you're 12 years old, you should get your own room. Okay.
Okay, your own room inside of your parents' house.
Yeah, okay.
I could go with that. Yeah.
Okay, what I'm saying is that when you're 12 years old, you should, because you start bonding to the community, the troubled teenage years are when you're bonding to the community. You should get your own living unit, okay? And it could be adjoining your parents' unit and whatnot, you know?
Yeah.
It's not like you're going to escape supervision or anything like that. This is a living unit within the community that you should have, okay? And your schooling, the way the schools should operate is that everybody wears the same uniform, so there's no fashionista wars.
I don't have a problem with uniforms. Yeah, I like that it gets rid of that whole cliquey kind of thing.
You should focus only on one subject when you go to school. Plus, you know, you could have physical education.
To what age? At what age?
No, all the way through school. You should focus on one.
So starting in kindergarten?
You see, because what they do is they give you chaos because you're learning like English, math, foreign language, creative writing or science and whatnot. You shouldn't have so many different things.
So you don't think every person should be literate and have basic math skills? Or?
No. Learn math, okay, until you get it. When you pass the test, then you go to science.
I'm not attacking you. I'm just playing devil's advocate.
I'm trying to. Yeah, exactly. You should. And so basically, every child should be able to focus. And when he comes home, when his homework, it's one subject. He doesn't come home with like 2 or 3 different things, right? Because the brain it's too much chaos for the brain, and he doesn't really get it, right?
Yeah.
And this is the design of the school is to basically.
It's a prison. I call our schools prison.
Yeah,
it is. We wouldn't expect adults to sit on their ass for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours at a time, and you're letting 6-year-olds run around for 10 minutes and then wonder why they won't behave in class, why they won't stop flicking their pencil and hitting the person behind them. It's silly to have those expectations of children.
The very, very best teachers in America, like I think Jamie Escalante was the math teacher who was very, very good.
Yeah, the movie was based on.
Yeah, I think it had Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, and that was a true life story in Los Angeles.
Yeah, basically taking inner city kids and just teaching them
That's gonna bother me now. I can't think of the name of that movie.
Yeah. But it's great. Okay.
Higher learning.
Something like that.
Okay.
Anyway,
I'm sure if you're watching out there, you can Google it.
So children can learn, okay, but you gotta be able to focus, okay. You gotta make it entertaining and whatnot, and so teachers basically need to rely on I think videotape, CD, whatever. You know, kids need to advance at at the speed that they're. You shouldn't hold back the fast kids, you know, or just keep passing up the slow kids, right? Because everybody's brain is different. It's going to tend to have strengths and weaknesses.
Definitely.
Okay, and so the educational system needs to take that into account, okay, and let kids progress at their own rate. You know, you come to school, you know, and you're learning just math, all the math. You're just absorbed in math, and your brain will get it. And then when you're past that level, then you go to science, and then for another 3 months, you're just focused on science and biology and astronomy and geology and whatnot, you know, and stuff like that. And then the writing, and then and so essentially, kids, one kid could be doing math, one kid could be doing science and whatnot, and everybody's progressing at their own rate.
So would you have these small groups work with each other? Like groups of 4, groups of 6?
Well, part of the education process is learning to socialize.
Definitely.
Okay.
But students also help each other, right? Some idiot's got his car alarm.
Yeah, but that could, are they helping or hurting? A lot of the stuff that goes on in school is not education oriented and whatnot because there's competition, and whatnot. So there should be a chance to learn social skills, recess, free study hours or whatever, but you basically need to be watching the very best videos. I mean, these Hollywood movies that we create that are so well done, you could create special effects and teach math, and Walt Disney.
Definitely, draw them in.
Walt Disney did this with Donald Duck and Math Magic Land. That is a wonderful video. You can get it on YouTube. Donald Duck and Math Magic Land. That's how kids should learn about math, you know?
Oh, definitely, and people and just videos on YouTube. My wife's a teacher. I mean, sometimes she watches videos on YouTube, and as much as I don't like the competition and the big corporations getting into YouTube all the time, it's great that History Channel's put some stuff out there, and they've put out some lessons that are maybe like 5 minutes, so you don't have to watch 2 hours, and they pack a lot of information a lot of times into a short period of time, keep the kids' attention and keep them interested.
Yeah, I just breezed through school, and I went to 8 high schools. Okay, and
I can't imagine. Oh.
Yeah, that's pretty rough. But I would just sit down sometimes. I would just pick up an encyclopedia and just read. I was an information sponge, and to me, classes were boring. They weren't challenging. Okay, and it was just slow. I was held back. Okay, and so there needs to be ways for kids to get challenged. You learn better when you're motivated to learn it, right?
Oh, definitely.
Like all my physics stuff, I learned after I was 30 years old because, well, by golly, that stuff's interesting, right? You know, I suddenly realized at 30 years old that I really like theoretical physics and astrophysics.
I've started to study a lot more things in my 30s than in my entire life.
Yeah, when you're in your
boy.
Teenage years in the 20s and whatnot, you're focused on relationships and and getting your life centered around and kind of figuring things out, But when you're 30 and you got everything kind of sorted out, your brain frees up a little bit and wants more. It needs input, right? And that's when you start to learn.
I think podcasts are a great addition to our lives right now. People stuck in traffic, you can easily listen to a podcast and do a menial task while you're washing your dishes or.
Theoretically, you shouldn't be caught in traffic at all. Theoretically, you should live where you work. When you go to work, you open the door, you walk a couple blocks, right, and then you're there, right? There shouldn't be the traffic issues that we have today. Too many people die on the roads, and that's by design, I believe.
I hope 20 years from now people look back and they say, I can't believe people are living like this. I can't believe people are waiting in traffic for 4-6 hours a day. Almost as much time as they're working, you're living in your car at that point. You're basically homeless. So think about it like that.
Essentially, yeah, and it's insane. The number of people that died. There's people who are going to be driving when they're just too drowsy. They've worked too many hours. Those truck drivers and stuff that. There needs to be a system where you can live where you work. Granted, there's going to be a lot of jobs that you're going to have to travel to and whatnot, but that should be restricted to people who absolutely have to drive. And corporations should be putting affordable housing on their property so their employees don't have to drive. Okay,
As much as we've railed against the government, do you think that there has to be some kind of? You think the government's going to have to push some laws to make them do it a little bit?
Essentially.
Or people are just going to have to demand it, say we're not going to work for you until you give us reasonable conditions to be able to get here.
You could call a whole national strike like Gandhi did and said nobody's working for the British government anymore, and that's it, right? Until we get our demands met, right? And that would work, yeah. But good luck. America's so divided and conquered right now. I don't think it would happen. But the thing to do is to focus on the primary: building codes, zoning regulations, community. Education, 1, 2, 3 principle, watch these movies that we've talked about, read these books we've talked about, whatnot, and post comments if you have questions, whatnot.
Yeah, definitely. We want some interaction from people. Please hit that like button and that subscribe button. It really helps us. It motivates us to keep going. I mean, we're only at 15 subscribers right now, which is. It's higher or lower than a lot of people. Been doing this for about 3 months.
Eventually the word's going to get out that you can hear stuff on this video that you won't hear anyplace else. It's not out there. Okay?
This is the alternative media, but this is the true media. We don't have an incentive. We don't have a financial incentive to tell you the things that we want you to believe, like ABC and CBS and Fox. That's why you see. The mainstream media is almost essentially dead, and people are listening to podcasts, they're watching YouTube videos.
People are sitting at home and they're divided, and they're isolated and whatnot. It shouldn't be. Okay, the richness and fullness of every life is the people who are in it, not the things, the people who are in it. Everybody getting together, solving problems, having a good time and whatnot. If you watch that movie, Meet John Doe, Frank Capra explains it all. So, Meet John Doe, It's a Wonderful Life, Mystery Men, An Open Mind.
A mind of our own, yeah, definitely read. And I don't,
Scam, and
you might disagree with me, but I don't. If you're not a good reader and you don't retain well from reading, I don't think you have to read a lot. Read some articles and different things, but I think for some people, listening to it on the podcast is more effective. I believe it is for me, because there's not that break from I have to get it through my eyes and then to my mind. It's going directly, I feel, from my hearing straight into my brain. I feel like I retain it a lot better and a lot faster.
Okay, so how long are we?
Are we about to wrap this up? All right, go out there, volunteer at your local food banks, please. Help your community.
Yes.
Like says, you've advocated. One more message out there. We're talking about people in traffic. I want to talk to people probably obviously in their 20s or 30s, maybe older. You're striving for that big promotion or that big company time, and you're stuck in traffic. Go and study some of the people like Quentin Rampage Jackson of the UFC, that says that he wishes he would have never became famous because he had to leave his family. The guy's a multi-millionaire, and he would rather hung around with his cousins. There's tons and tons of documentation out there right now of people on their deathbeds talking about their greatest regret is they didn't spend more time with their friends and family, and that they were controlled by corporations and they didn't even know it.
So you may be a slave, a capitalist wage slave, physically, but you're free up here. You're free up here. Okay.
For your mind.
Okay,
Right?
free your
So
mind.
we end on that.
Yeah, free
I
your
can't
mind.
play the song because of the copyright, but yeah. Thanks for tuning in to another episode, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you can take something useful out of this. And like I said, please like and subscribe there. It helps motivate us. Comment down below. We want to engage with you guys. And we'll see you next week.